think it was about 17 years old when I was home in Darwin and I saw a show on TV. It was ABC and it was called The Bush Tucker Man. Now, I was just a kid, so it was a long time ago, but I still remember it quite well because what really came home to me was the idea that the Australian Army had jobs like that where they pay you to get into a army vehicle. That's what it was to me at the time. I didn't know it was Perentie. Travel around northern Australia, in fact Greater Australia, and go on these great expeditions collecting food, hearing stories and really sort of getting to the core of what the country is. And I was 17 years old when that happened and I watched it and it moved something. And at that moment I knew that I wanted to join the Australian military, because if they were offering jobs like that, well, then it seemed like a pretty cool industry or family to be part of. And the Bush Tucker Man series was bigger than just a TV show. It inspired me in so many ways.
As they say, every story has a beginning, so let's start there. I visited the Darwin Military Museum 2 months prior to the making of this video, where I saw the Bush Tucker Man's car for the first time. It was parked on stands, left with the bonnet up for 15 years as tourists came and went, along with the heavy monsoonal rains that quickly started surface rust all over the engine bay, as well as the Isuzu motor that last ran when it was driven here by members of her unit at Norforce. Tourists had been climbing in and out to get photos, and as a result, bits of the car were broken or missing inside and out. This is our piece of Australian history. It rightfully belongs to each and every Australian. Parading this classic piece of history like this was a huge letdown for me. It was time to take action, and I wanted to see her fixed, serviced and completely operational once again. And that's it. That's the start of the story. After a few phone calls, the museum invited me in and handed me the keys. The Bush Tucker Man's car was now officially my responsibility. So 2 more phone calls had to be made. The first to the president of the DOAC, Matt Hubbard, where I pleaded with him to allow the DOAC to sponsor all repairs and maintenance of this old girl, and in return we'd have bragging rights to say the Bush Tucker Man's car is now loved and cared for by our club, the DOAC, the Defenders of Australia Club. Then there was a second phone call, this time to our treasurer, Adam Cole. After all, he'd have to find the funding to be able to bankroll this. Adam was coming to Darwin to do a recce for the 2027 DOAC Trophy Rally that followed the footsteps of the original 1986 Camel Trophy. While here, I took him out to see the Bush Tucker Man's car that he'd watched on TV for decades. He had never seen it up close and personal. This was his first experience.
It was an unbelievable experience to actually be holding the keys in my hand to start with, let alone walking up to this car that I had sort of looked at through my childhood so much. So to actually be standing there holding a key and touching this car that was such a big part of my childhood was an unbelievable experience. It was a good feeling.
So Adam comes to Darwin for an unrelated purpose, but he's keen to see the very vehicle that inspired him as a teenager watching Bush Tucker Man. He wanted to go and see it, so I kind of held off on getting the car started, so I would give him the honour of putting the key in there and starting it up, right? But there was first some maintenance that we had to do to the vehicle, and all the usual stuff, check for the oil and check for the coolant and just make sure generally that the car's kind of ready to start.
I remember the popping of the bonnet and sort of and slowly lifting it up and looking inside. I remember seeing the corrosion and the wear and the sort of the neglect that this car had seen over the last 15 years, and it made me a little bit sad. But then also it made me proud that I was here today to rectify that and to bring this girl back to life. So it was was definitely a dream come true. So before we didn't just sort of run straight in and sort of try to start it straight away. We did have a little bit of a checklist, George and I, of things that we needed to check. Obviously the oils and the fluids and the water, these sort of things, and sort of just a general overhaul and a look at the engine to sort of see if it was possible to start again visually.
And there's a bit of corrosion there, I noticed, right?
Yeah, there's a bit of corrosion, but nothing too, considering it's been sitting here for so long, nothing too bad.
I was quite surprised when I did check the oil, that it did have still like it was still up to the full mark, so it still had a decent amount of oil in it. The water in the radiator overflow was still good, had some corrosion, but it was still definitely viable. Overall, for it being sitting there for 15 years, it was actually in pretty good nick. So yeah, I was quite surprised to see that. So.
But nothing too, considering it's been sitting here for so long, nothing too bad.
The battery was completely dead, which we sort of expected. So we found a new battery, we sort of dove in and replaced that with a live one, wired it up, and got ready to start this old girl.
So this is the moment, Adam.
This is the moment. We've got the key. I'm going to pop it in the car. Contact, boys. Wow.
It was so good to hear the car start. And if you listen closely, I mean, it started straight away. It didn't wind over and carry on. No, we had already primed up the fuel and got everything right, and we cracked one of the lines and made sure there were no air. The whole thing was right and ready to go. And once you started up, it was music to my ears,
Yeah, when we did start it up, we did discover there was a leak coming. So we sort of looked around where that was.
When I saw the oil dripping, that little voice in my ear said to me, well, it is Land Rover, right? But that was a lot of oil that was coming out, so I knew that there was something seriously wrong. And so I crawled up to the vehicle and had a look, and I roughly identified where that oil leak was coming from. So then I looked it through the top, and it turns out that the top of the oil filter had been making contact with an intake hose, and that intake hose had disintegrated, and the wire spiral within the hose had been rubbing on top of that oil filter. Removed the paint, and of course with the bonnet open, it's no longer being driven. But now rain's coming in, and that exposed bit of metal there started to corrode, and there was a little pinprick of a hole there. You can see it very clearly, and while the engine's running, it's hemorrhaging that oil. So had it not been spotted, which of course we would have spotted it, but had it not been spotted and had that corrosion opening happened maybe while we were road testing the vehicle, the first thing we would have known that there was something wrong is, our oil pressure would have come up, and we may have even seized the engine. So we found it, but thankfully we had an oil filter ready to go, and so we just spun the new oil filter on there, and it was happy days from there.
Yeah, it just sort of blew me away that a car could sit there for so long and still be ready to go. You know what I mean? Ready for more adventure.
just when we had the car running and everything was going good, I don't know what possessed me to do it, but I asked Adam to turn on the headlights and do the indicators, brakes and everything, and nothing worked. Nothing at all worked. Engine was running, ignition was good, electrical seemed fine, but there was nothing happening as far as lighting. So we got to the fuse box and I quickly checked them, and with the engine running, those fuses should be indicating to me that they're live. They weren't. There might have been 2 out of the 25 or so fuses. None of them were live.
So we've managed to get the Perentie running. Something interesting's happened. None of the lights are working. Not the tail lights, not the indicator lights, not the headlights. Nothing's working, not even the brake lights, all right? So what Adam and I have done, if you film over here, Adam, we've just opened up the fuse box here, the front where this particular car is, right? And I noticed something a moment ago, and it's this stuff here. So just film up on top of there, yeah? Just keep filming, all right? Have a look at this. I don't know if you can see what's going on in here. See this? Yeah, that's looking like a little rat party has been happening here. Rodents have been gathering crapola inside here. So I suspect that what's actually happening here is this panel's got to come off, because behind here, a rodent has parked itself up and called itself home, and some of these wires back here may be chewed. In fact, it's probably going to be one main wire that's bringing in the feed that's causing us our dramas. So we're going to investigate that. We'll do that off camera.
The more we looked behind the fuse box, the more damage we found from the rodent that had decided to call the Perentie its home. Sadly, my limited knowledge in the auto-electrical trade left me with nowhere to start, as we didn't even have a wiring diagram to attempt to follow. Not to worry, Adam and I moved on to the next task. It was time to give the engine a good clean and make a solid attempt at weatherproofing it for the next few years.
After we got the girl started, we looked at ways of possibly to restore and to sort of keep it in a better sort of nick. So we decided that we would treat some of this corrosion with some steel wool and use a special paint to give her a good sort of paint job, so we can maintain this car for years to come. Initially, when we decided to sort of paint, we thought that we would just paint the airbox and the sort of the rocket cover and a few select items. But as we started to paint, we just said this engine, this dream, this passion that had been part of me for so long started to sort of come more to life. So we just sort of kept painting, and before we knew it, we were painting pretty much the entire engine. But it was so much fun.
In the time that I've been coming to the Darwin Military Museum, I've come to learn so much about how this place operates. It's almost totally run by volunteers, as the government puts very little money into such facilities. The one man who gives his all is a gentleman called Dr. Norman Cramp, and trust me when I tell you that this man not only runs the administration and operation at the front end, he's also the guy that puts the thousands of exhibits together, maintains them all, and when he's not flat out doing that, you'll often find him mowing the lawns of this large site on a ride-on mower to conserve the little money the museum has, so it can be spent on one more amazing display for you and me to see and enjoy. The bush tucker man's car wasn't in such a poor state because nobody cared. It was in that state because we, the owners of this piece of history, hadn't stepped up and made the effort to look after it. I had no idea that we, the public, the collective owners of everything on display in our local museums, could volunteer and adopt an artefact or display that speaks to us and request to look after it and its presentation. For the bush tucker man's car, that's now addressed, and we'll be making sure that the Perentie continues to look sharp and ready for its next big deployment.
Growing up in the 80s and early 90s, I remember watching the Bush Tucker man in absolute awe. The knowledge, the country, the adventure, the way he moved through the land. It captured something in me as a kid, and that something has never left. It was around the same time as the Camel Trophy came to Australia, and for me, those memories are all tied together. Land Rovers, adventure, the bush, and the spirit of exploring this great country. So to be here in Darwin with the DOAC, standing beside the actual vehicle from the original series, and to be part of bringing this old icon back to life, it means a lot. This isn't just starting an old car. For me, it's touching a piece of Australian history and reliving part of my childhood with my own hands.